Hello, this is Colin Gibney. Today I would like to introduce you to a feature of star forts that few star fort researchers, or geoastronomers as I like to call them, have ever mentioned. They are satellites of usually large city-scale stars. In general, they resemble oversized bastions that have wandered off in the direction they were pointing. Where a city has really boomed in the past, some of the satellites can develop into standard 4 or 5-pointed stars. The further they are from the central star, the less elaborate they tend to be, some being a small triangular form, others rounded rectangles. They all, however, have typical star fort DNA. It must be seriously considered that these are part of the inner star. Even if they appear completely disconnected from it, there's still evidence today that they were originally connected by canals as opposed to walls or mounds of earth. What I'm showing you on screen now at the moment are various examples, and a lot of these are from around the outskirts of Amsterdam. The original story here for Amsterdam is that these were part of a network of defences that were built with the intention that they would break the dike. As you know, a lot of Holland is reclaimed land and has many dikes holding back the sea. So the idea behind these was that they would break the dike and they would flood the area, thus washing out their enemies, and these would be safe havens for the armies, I suppose. I'll put them into perspective now in a moment. I'll show you what they look like on the map. I'll just flick through some more pictures of some of them so that you can get an appreciation of them. They do vary quite a bit in form. So we'll have a look at Amsterdam. And as you remember, this is the old map of Amsterdam. It's 4 kilometers from here to here. And I'll just wipe that out for the moment. You can see where the bastions run around. So a pretty enormous star fort. So if we move out, what we'll see is this ring around the city. Going all the way surrounding it. Now, going back to that story about bursting the dam and flooding this area and using these as safe havens, I don't know. In my opinion, that really doesn't work. What do you think? Just have a close look at them. Some of them, yes. Just to give you an idea of the size. This one is 283 meters across, about 300. I tend to undermeasure them rather than exaggerate. I try not to exaggerate. So we go over here. Again, the same thing. 300 odd meters. Any single one of these in itself would be a hefty engineering project. Yet alone placing them 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Sixteen, 17, 18, 19, 20, 27, 28, 29, 30, 32. I'm not sure this counts as part of that plan. 33. This is why I say they look like wandering bastions, or Roman bastions. And some of you may be familiar with this kind of fort that is completely surrounded by water. So there were however many of them, over 30 of them, spanning a diameter of 32 kilometers in that direction and 25-ish kilometers in that direction. So in the age where they didn't have lasers and advanced optics and GPS and such modern marvels, I find it very hard to believe that these were all built to a level that would keep them safe and wash out their enemies, and probably a good percentage of their own population at the same time. So that's Amsterdam. We'll have a quick look at Antwerp in Belgium. Now, Antwerp. Now, the overlay that I did of Antwerp, this image dates from 1572, and I've outlined roughly what it looked like, but as you can see from the image, it's viewed at an angle, so therefore I couldn't place it exactly onto the satellite photograph. I mean, the aerial photograph. Old habits die hard. Onto the aerial photograph of Antwerp. So you've got an angled perspective on this drawing. I think in reality that the head of this hedgehog would have been perhaps up here, and the back of the body would have been running around here, because this is where they generally did run, along these green belts and ring roads that would be oh so easy to build upon a starfort wall. Now, I noticed another thing about Antwerp is an outer ring. This may be like in Malta, where we can clearly see there was an inner and an outer ring. We'll just pop down for a quick visit. Sorry to break the continuity, but I just want to show you that. Sorry, Malta isn't there. Malta is here. Okay, so this part here of Malta, you can clearly see there's an inner star and an outer star, as well as some wandering points. So we go back to Antwerp. I think we have the same idea going on here. The reason for that is that here, that's quite clear to me that that is a typical starfort feature, because you still have the water around a point. And this outer trace is just roughly marked. And if you notice where the important points would have been, there is a lot of civil engineering has happened quite conveniently. This is typical. This building might be conforming to the foundation below it. If it didn't go up here, it may have wrapped around this way, because we have the same thing here. These are all typical fingerprints of starforts. So you have the central part here. Now if we have a look over here, we've got this little feature. This little feature is over 500 meters across in both directions. There may well have been possibly two more, possibly on the golf course or under here. So here's another one. Over 500 meters. Another. 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 Going up here. Not really getting smaller. By any means, each of those over a kilometre. Here's a. This could be where canals were. Going up to this jolly little fellow here. Continuing on up to a small 4-pointer. 200 meters, point to point, across the river. This looks like it was a 5-pointer. Where do we go from here? Now, this yellow line is what appears to be an abandoned canal. It goes around this way, but it also goes up this way. That brings us to our next satellite. Do you notice it's getting a bit smaller now? Interesting formation this canal had. Getting smaller as we go. Okay. Continuing. If you notice, I slightly diminishing in size and running out. For further. And they go all the way around. And I think we're sort of at the end of it here. Just have a look at what's this one. Smaller and less elaborate. So down to 300 meters. Now, this one is interesting in its layout. It's a spiral. Maybe originally following the golden number rule. Fractal, perhaps, in its nature. But at this stage, as far as I'm concerned, these are all part of this. Give you an overall, there is 30 kilometers and I suppose you could say 30 kilometers in that direction. They're pretty big features by on anybody's terms. We'll have a quick look at Paris. Paris's fort walls probably I'll bring that back and I'll try and give you an estimation. I don't know, it's hard to work out with Paris because it's difficult to find a reliable old map. I did find one that dates from 1841 that shows are these bastions? I think the story tells us that they had 33 kilometers of defenses. I'm not sure how that one goes. So I think it's safe to assume, because there are other maps, that there are clearer markings of bastions. So we assume, we know Paris was a star fort in itself. Now, when it comes to its satellites, you remember I showed you some of these? The more elaborate the city, the more elaborate the satellites became. Just pop out the ruler for a point-to-point measure on these. Okay, 300 meters point to point. And speaking of points, here's an interesting point about this particular place, and it reveals a lot. This is what it used to look like in 2007. This is what it looked like in 2011. And this is what it looks like today. Do you see that? Is a solid rocky outcrop in the middle of Paris. Something worth bearing in mind. So we go over here. This was a 4-pointed one. Another 4-pointed one. It's great fun finding these things. You should try it sometime. Okay. We've had a look at these before in the Pentagon video. I'm sure there's one missing. There's another one. And it's clear, like I say, I don't like to mark these things unless there really is something to mark. Also, some of these did appear on that map, not all of them, but a good few. So you have the center of Paris. That was a huge fort. Outside, you've got a ring of elaborate satellites, and outside that again, there are more. Let's see what this one. Okay, you probably wouldn't believe me if I told you that was one. It kind of looks like one too, doesn't it? This one most definitely does. Over here. Over here. And so on. Kind of a similar situation to Antwerp, but you notice they change form a bit and can be quite varied. But they are nonetheless clearly there and quite the huge scale. So I'm going to have to wrap this one up because I don't want to be boring you, but they span right across a quick look at Bucharest in Romania. Look how evenly these ones grew out. I think it's got to do with the surrounding topography that they form such a circular pattern. Not perfect, but kind of like a flower, like petals on a flower. And try as I might, I don't think I've been able to find any old map of Bucharest, at least that is going to shed some light on this subject. The radius, as you saw there, is 11 kilometers, and I've found 33, and you can see that there's, looking at the spacing, there's one missing from there, one missing from there, one missing from there, one missing from there. Would have been 37 of them. Just give you an idea of the size. Here we are, about 300 meters. So there's your introduction to Roamin Bastions, or stars and their satellites. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe a bit if you like, I will be doing more. And see you the next time. Goodbye.